And this is why Russia is threatening nuclear retaliation towards NATO. What? Stay until the end of this video to find out why Russia is so against NATO and what NATO is. History unfolded here once again, trying to explain what is going on between NATO and Russia with the war in Ukraine. It's a complex problem, so listen carefully as it has a lot of moving pieces. NATO, which stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a political and military alliance founded in 1949. The treaty establishing NATO was signed on April 4, 1949, in Washington, D.C., by 12 countries: the United States, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, and the United Kingdom. It was established to promote collective defense and deter potential aggression against its member countries in North America and Europe. NATO currently has 30 member countries, including the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Italy, and Turkey, among others. The alliance's primary goal is to ensure the security of its members through political consultation, military planning, and defense cooperation. NATO operates through various bodies, including the North Atlantic Council, the Military Committee, and the International Staff. The alliance's headquarters are located in Brussels, Belgium. Since its inception, NATO has played a significant role in maintaining peace and stability in Europe and has been involved in various military operations, including peacekeeping missions and combat operations. Or so they state. NATO has been criticized for overstepping in international conflicts and for wanting to expand right onto Russia's front door. A key period that led to the current tension is the Cold War. The Cold War was a period of political and military tension between the Western powers, led by the United States, and the Eastern powers led by the Soviet Union. It lasted from the end of World War II in 1945 until the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, spanning almost 5 decades. The Soviet Union was a federal socialist state, and at its height, it was the largest country in the world. 15 countries made up of the Soviet Union. These 15 republics were considered equal members of the Soviet Union and were governed by the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, CPSU. The Soviet Union was dissolved in 1991, and the 15 republics became independent states. The countries that played the biggest roles in the Soviet Union were Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, who is Russia's strongest ally right now, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Latvia, and Georgia. On a quick side note, Georgia was involved in the 2008 Russo-Georgian War, a war that began when Georgia launched a military operation against the breakaway region of South Ossetia. South Ossetia, along with another breakaway region, Abkhazia, had declared independence from Georgia in the early 1990s, but their independence was not recognized by most countries, including Russia. Russia, which had close ties to the separatist regions and had granted citizenship to many of their residents, responded to Georgia's military operation by launching a full-scale invasion of Georgia. Russian troops entered South Ossetia and Abkhazia, and also moved into other parts of Georgia. The conflict lasted for several days, and there were reports of significant casualties on both sides. Russia ultimately emerged victorious, and Georgia was forced to withdraw its troops from South Ossetia and Abkhazia. The reasons behind Russia's decision to invade Georgia are complex and have been subject to much debate. Some analysts have argued that Russia was seeking to demonstrate its military strength and assert its influence over the region, particularly in light of NATO's expansion plans. Others have suggested that Russia was seeking to protect the interests of the ethnic Russian populations in South Ossetia and Abkhazia. The conflict led to a significant deterioration in relations between Russia and the West, with many countries condemning Russia's actions and imposing sanctions. It also resulted in a significant increase in tensions between Russia and Georgia, with the two countries continuing to have disputes over issues such as the status of the breakaway regions and control over their borders. At the height of the Cold War and the Soviet Union's power, the USSR and its allied Warsaw Pact countries encompassed half of Europe and almost the entirety of Central Asia. But after the demise of the USSR in 1989, lands once within Moscow's orbit quickly peeled away to join NATO. For Vladimir Putin, the process of slowly taking away countries from Russia towards NATO comes as both a persistent threat and a personal insult. Putin, who was a former KGB agent, which is the equivalent of the CIA in the US, Putin was a KGB agent during the Cold War and a proud nationalist who has big dreams of reviving the glories of Imperial Russia. This goal is seriously hampered by the inclusion of what Putin would deem rightful Russian lands, such as the Baltics, into the NATO alliance. Putin's last straw with Ukraine came in the beginning of 2014, when the uprising in Ukraine was replaced from pro-Russian leadership to a party which is more Western-friendly and in favor of joining NATO. Russia knew that joining NATO was a lengthy process, so they began with the annexation of Crimea in 2014, which was previously a part of Ukraine and was officially annexed by the Russian Federation. The annexation was followed by a series of protests and uprisings in Ukraine's eastern regions, which led to the establishment of pro-Russian separatist entities in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Russia has denied any direct involvement in the conflict, but it is widely believed that Russian military and intelligence personnel provided support to the separatists, including weapons and training. The conflict has since escalated into a full-blown military conflict, with both sides accusing each other of aggression. There are several reasons why Russia may have annexed Crimea and supported separatist movements in eastern Ukraine. One possible motive is to gain control over valuable resources, including Crimea's ports and gas reserves. Another possible motive is to expand Russian influence and power in the region, particularly in light of the perceived threat of NATO expansion. Additionally, some analysts argue that the annexation and support for separatists is part of a broader strategy by the Russian government to undermine and weaken Ukraine, which it sees as a strategic rival. Now that Russia invaded Ukraine, NATO is playing a role in helping Ukraine, because if Ukraine falls, there is fear that Russia will not stop and go further into Europe. Members of NATO have given billions of dollars to aid Ukraine, with the US being the leader with $54 billion so far in aid, while the UK is second with $5.2 billion. NATO has been a strong proponent as to why Ukraine has not lost the war. New state-of-the-art tanks, helicopters, drones, and artillery have been provided to Ukraine to help aid. Due to the overwhelming aid from NATO funding Ukraine, Russia has given numerous threats of nuclear repercussions. Deputy Chairman of Russia's Security Council Dmitry Medvedev gave an interview stating, "The defeat of a nuclear power in a conventional war may trigger a nuclear war," while Putin himself claims the threat of nuclear war has never been greater, especially due to Western powers aiding Ukraine. With casualties on both sides growing day by day, the conflict has resulted in over 13,000 deaths and has displaced over 1.5 million people according to the United Nations. While the outcome of the war is still uncertain, the only hope is that it will stop, with experts claiming that due to so many countries being involved, we are closer to World War III now than ever before. No matter what side of the war you support, war is never the answer. We hope for a better future. If you found the video helpful, please like, subscribe, and comment on your thoughts.